Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com's review of Yamato's 160 SV51 toys. These toys were released in 3 delicious flavors, including the DD Ivanov you see in front of you, which hit shelves in August 2007 for 21,800 yen. That was followed up in November of 2007 with a Nora paint scheme, and then in February 2008 when we got the mass production version. This toy comes with 4 micro missile launchers / auxiliary tanks, 2 medium range missiles, 2 over the wing boosters that I will discuss a little bit more in a moment. You get a pilot figure. One thing to note, while the Nora and mass production versions are the same as the Ivanov toy, one difference is that the pilot figure for Nora has boobs, so they actually made her a female, which is a nice little detailed touch. You also get the display stand you see here, connectors for each of the 3 modes, instructions, and stickers. Let's begin with a discussion of the display stand. It's the same display stand that Yamato later used with their YF21 toys. That is, it's got this little wheel plug that you can remove, and then it's got a geared attachment that connects to whichever mode you're in, and then you can angle it however you'd like to angle it. And you can also move the big arm, and there's individual notches for the smaller arm, so you can get higher up or lower down positions. So there's no ability to tweak the toy left or right on top of the display stand, but it does allow a little bit more flexibility than you would see in, say, Bandai's Renewal DX display stands. One of the big downers for this toy is that just left and right of the head, there are gaps that actually let you see right through the toy. Another downer compared to modern day toys, there's a lot of big seams where things come together for transformation. Now, the line art does have some pretty thick lines on it too, and the idea is that these are precursors to modern Valkyries, so there is some forgiveness to be had in all that, but you definitely would see tighter production values in more modern toys. Again, these came out back in 2007. If you're familiar with Macross 7, there is one cool feature that this display stand lets you accomplish, and that's the launch position. If you'll remember, the SV51s were launched from a submersible aircraft carrier, kind of like giant torpedoes. And to accomplish that, you can use the stand to have the toy sitting pretty much straight up like I've done here. You can then fold the wings over, like so. Now, I was just about to mention, these pods, while they're secure enough, if your hand bumps them, they will certainly fall off. In this regard, not such a bad thing, because it allows me to show you the next part of bringing these wings over, which is this little switch right here. You have to bring it back this way, and what that's doing is there's 2 metal pins that have now slid out of the wing, which then allows me to fold this back over like so. So again, I could just fold the wing over, bring in this here, tighter on this side, and then fold that over. And I've taken off 2 of the pods, but there is launch mode SV51. I mentioned earlier that the toy comes with over-the-wing boosters. To install those boosters, you want to flip the wing upside down, remove the middle missile if you had it attached, and it does attach it generally a little more firmly than these bigger pods do. And then you're going to see 2 little circles. And what you need to do is find something you can poke with, and just push out on those little circles. And what that does is it brings up this piece of plastic here, which you then remove so that you can install this big booster like so. I mentioned earlier that the stand doesn't really allow you to angle it, and if you had it straight forward, that's still true, but if you're willing to turn it to the side, you could do something like this. Here you see I've got the boosters attached. I've got it sort of in the angry flight position that it was in the finale of Zero. It looks really good. The wings are a little unsturdy. If I touch them at all, they'll start to come down like that. And you'd end up with a much more aggressive pose. I'm sure if you just left it on a display stand, over time your wings will end up more like this. So the question often is, alright, but if you straighten the wings out, are they sturdy enough to hold the weight of all of this? So we can do a little experiment real quick. And there you can see I've got the wing out, I've got it straight. And now I have not handled this toy a lot over the years, so it's probably still fairly tight, much like a new toy. So over time, would you still be able to support the weight of these boosters like it is right now? Very debatable, but as you can see for the moment, everything's working out fine for my toy. This toy has integrated landing gears. To get the landing gears out, you just need to bring a nail in and pry open like so. It's actually one of the more difficult landing gear bay doors to open on a Valkyrie toy. And you can just pull this little hook, that brings the wheel up. And then from there, you're going to bring it all the way out. There's a rubber wheel, very tough to rotate, no locking mechanism, but it didn't really hinder me too much that it wasn't there. Front landing gear works the way many other transformable fighter planes do. You have two opening doors and a rear, and then you can just pull the landing gear out like so. As you can see, it's quite a bit different from many Valkyrie toy landing gears. There's no front articulated tow bar. You've got this back plate instead. One of the many things that differentiate the SV51 from its contemporaries. Flipping the toy over, it sits on those landing gears. There is clearance from the ground. Again, the wheels don't rotate very well, but it looks good sitting on those landing gears. The toy also has an opening canopy, and that canopy does have a little bit of a paintwork to it, as you can see from the top there. Now, this was a common complaint for build quality issues. Some people had a fogged up canopy, particularly on their Ivanov toys. Obviously I don't have it, but it did seem to be a common complaint. You can see there is a little hand painted, I believe it's an eject bar that goes above the pilot's head. And then you can also see that there's actually painted application here of the cockpit detail. So very impressed with the little details that Yamato went to, including these blue clear plastic bits here instead of just being a little paint splashed onto the charcoal gray. It is instead a separate insert. So very nicely done. Also red plastic inserts here and here. The toy looks fantastic. One little quibble in fighter mode is that these rear parts very easily jostled. They don't really lock into place particularly well. Obviously that's a pet peeve. There's a little bit of detail for these back boosters. Kind of hard to see there, but looks good enough, particularly from the rear. There are no intake covers. The SV51 didn't have them, it just had the turbine showing at all times. Alright, let's go ahead and check out Gearwalk mode. Before we discuss the toy in Gearwalk mode, let's discuss the gun the toy comes with. It features removable magazines that just peg into each other. There are also fold-out pegs on the side, which is how it attaches to the legs in fighter mode. There's also a grip that in fighter mode is straight back, and in Batroid and Gearwalk mode folds forward, and then you can see there's a hole in that grip that would fit into the peg that's in the hand of the toy. I'll show you that on the stand in a moment here. In Gearwalk mode, this toy is a better display piece than it is something to be handled. There's a lot of stuff that is easily jostled, from these little pieces on the side here Of course, you could knock off the armaments on the wings pretty easily. Yamato, for their part, when they would show this toy in Gearwalk mode, wouldn't include the pylons and the inner sections, and that's because if you bring the wings forward at all, they're going to end up resting right on the shoulders, so that's not really what we want. But if you were handling this toy, you can jostle any bit of it pretty easily and end up with something that looks a little disheveled. From the fins on the arms, there you see the legs kind of want to spread out on you pretty easily. You can see the intake wants to pop out on you pretty easily. It's a little awkward to handle, but you could get it pretty easily into a position that looks pretty sharp and then just leave it that way and you're going to do okay. You can see the feet, they don't really get enough of an angle, so you end up with the toes on the outside end being elevated. You can manipulate that to kind of conceal it a little bit, but if you get a really aggressive stance, you might not be able to as well. So here is Gearwalk mode. Again, impressive display piece, not really the best handling toy. Alright, so now I've got Gearwalk mode on the stand. I've gone ahead and put the gun in the hand, and the gun's in there relatively well. One thing to note, this is a second generation toy, which pretty much means the elbow articulation is not very good. You get 90 degrees of elbow articulation, which in Gearwalk mode might bum you out in a couple places. There's also a gimmick. If you've seen Macross Zero, you might remember the scene where a Gearwalk SV51 needs to peek up above a canyon, I believe, and so it actually extends the head, which you can do in Gearwalk mode here by pulling backward, and it looks up and over the canyon like so. So you can do that in Gearwalk mode with this toy. It's just kind of got a little bit of an accordion action going on, so you can then easily push it right back into place as well. Alright, let's continue on to Batroid mode. Here is Batroid mode, and like Batroid mode, this toy is a lot better display piece than it is an actual toy in this mode. Again, things are just a little loose, a little sloppy. My Nora toy was much more stiff, but I gotta expect that after any sort of handling, these toys will all kind of loosen up and end up similar to this toy, which still can hold a pose just fine, but in handling, things get jostled. It's not very much fun. Articulation wise, you have the head, which can rotate back and forth. You can also bring it back a little and bring it forward. You have a rotation point at the shoulder. A little tricky to use, but it's there. You also have a rotation point underneath the shoulder. And as I showed you in Gearwalk mode, you have a 90-degree angle elbow that you can use. You do have the wings on the forearms, so that might limit you in what you do. You have a rotation point at the wrist, as well as a pivot, and the articulated fingers, the thumb, 3 fingers on one articulation joint, a pinky, and a trigger finger. You might have noticed that the heat shield has dropped down on me. I kind of have to keep tapping it back up, so that's a little bit annoying. You have hip joints, which let you get very far apart. They also let you come all the way forward and all the way back. There is your Gearwalk joint. There is a twist point above the knee. You can bring the knee back 90 degrees, no further than that. You cannot bring the knee forward because in Gearwalk mode it's actually turned around, so there is no forward angle on the knee. Not that would be incredibly natural even if there was. The foot allows you to come way up with the toe and back with the toe, but as I mentioned in Gearwalk, there's not a lot of pivot back and forth. You do not get a waist joint. That is pretty much all you have. The wings fold in pretty tight. If they don't do that, you might have a manufacturer issue where they installed the wrong hinges for you. So if you're struggling with that, and check out my transformation guide again to see how you're supposed to get the wings in that position. But be aware that some of these Ivanov toys particularly did have a hinge issue. So while the joints aren't particularly stiff, especially in regard to these giant legs and the hips that have to hold them up, the display stand does do a good job of giving you some options for how you can display this toy in positions that it otherwise wouldn't be able to keep on its own. As far as line art goes, check out this comparison here. You can see that Yamato did a pretty good job emulating the line art. If there aren't just a couple of small liberties probably necessary when you go from a drawing to an actual toy, although Zero definitely has some CG to it, so maybe there was room for a little bit more improvement. In case you weren't aware, this toy is an absolute beast. It's 38 centimeters long in fighter mode and almost 32 centimeters tall in Batroid mode. This is a V2 Bandai VF25 toy. As you could see, it is being towered over. So again, the SV51 does a great job as a display piece. But it is a second generation Yamato toy. Their third generation started with their V2 VF1 toy, and there were some other third generation releases, and all of them are superior to the SV51. Bandai's renewal toys are superior to the SV51, maybe with a couple exceptions, like I'd rather have my SV51 than a VF171 toy. But it is a great display piece. I'm happy to own it. If you're a fan of Macross Zero, you should probably go hunt one down, because we are never going to see another SV51 toy. This is it. Might become a very hot collectible someday. Maybe not, because it's an enemy toy and people don't seem to love enemy toys. But it's good enough to warrant getting if you're a fan of the SV51. If you're just a Macross fan looking for the best Macross toys, there's a few other options before this one should pop up on your list. Thanks for viewing. Check out my full article on anymoon.com.